So would I, actually. No, that'd be pretty cool.
I don't know whether I've quite got the synchronized required to praise Jabba the Hutt, though.
I was trying to think if there's anyone's name I could really just like brutally mash into like Toltu the Hutt. Doesn't quite work the same way.
Okay, right. Well,
maybe if they release like a giant slug champion, we can work with that.
I need to make a very rude reference about you then and decided against it. I'll leave that one alone.
Unbelievable working conditions.
No, that was very believable. Let's be real.
Believable, but so sad.
It's so disheartening. Okay, let's bring it back to the game where things are not quite disheartening. They're still very much up in the air. First game of the day here. As you said, mid-game skirmishing really from the side of CGA. Nap gets to play weak side on Sion, which is king of weak side tanks. You know, there was a point where the only champion you could even feasibly farm on in lane swaps when was a Sion top. Right, for the longest time.
That's true, yeah, because you just die under the turret and then you'd be like, sweet. Well, you die to a camp, you take them, you teleport under the turret with a red buff, and
you just queue a wave and it all goes. Yeah. On the other side of AXIZ, I actually really like their composition. I think they've got a lot of ways to start fights. I think they've got cool flank angles. I think if anybody ever clumps up your ability to fear everybody for a massive cannon ultimate to get Sanctuary rolling, it seems like a pretty smooth option for, I won't call it front to back, but I'll call it back to back to front.
Yes, no, it's heavy dive, right? It's effectively the opposite of the front to back, because let's be honest, AXIZ do not want to be lining guns up against CJ when they have the Tom Kench, realistically. You know, halfway through the draft, I was thinking like, okay, maybe you can lock in something which is a bit more, you know, stable, less volatile on tops. Of course, it's volatile, right? Or something in the mid lane, and you can play this front to back with something like a Jinx Victor. They chose to go towards heavy dive, double AP solo lanes. So Mercury Tread's going to be huge value out of CGA. Question is it going to be enough to save multiple members? Because if you have mid jungle with Merc Treads and you've got Nemo bailing one person out, which is probably going to be hybrid, let's be honest, is that going to be enough to save from a multi-man combo? That's going to be the break point in the game, so that's what we're waiting for. Look to see the leads on the big dive combos compared to the defensive options available from CGA. Absolutely. And of course, there's got to put some nameplates on as well. AXIZ have been struggling in recent weeks. They have not found the level of form once we saw out of them out of some week 1, 2, where Yoshi and the like before Toltu came in was running Smite top lane. He was running his Poppy, etc. And they've kind of got a bit solved. They kind of got a bit figured out. The strategy also got nerfed.
Yes,
usually so. Objective bounties, the way that they work with multiple support items and smites on your team, etc., etc. It ended up, of course, just kind of getting removed from the meta. So as AXIZ, they dug deep to try and find an angle, and that work, sadly for them, has now gone out the window. They do have Toltu. We've talked about this player a lot, mainly because this is the most eventful thing that's happened to this team, because it feels like a, not necessarily a desperation move, but it feels like their hand was forced in how they wanted to play out this roster.
Yeah, and, you know, we've seen talent here, but this was kind of true of people like Mega Man and stuff last year, where we saw good starts, but still needed a bit of growth. And then when you've not quite got the pieces around you, it doesn't always function. Of course, AXIZ had a pretty good 2021, all things said and done.
Well, spring was obviously terrible. They had a very rough split. They tried to get things working, you just wouldn't.
No, of course not.
Particularly Mega Man was struggling there. But you know what? He stood up in summer, and AXIZ, by my reckoning, actually were the second best team at the very end of that year. When they lost to DFM in that semi-finals, I think that they put up a great showing still. Now, this roster is much changed. You still have Mega Man. Dicey was on that roster and subbed in a little bit during spring, but this is a very much changed AXIZ. And they're yet to really find that same level of competition here in the LJL. They haven't found that same kind of performance. CGA, however, they've changed some things themselves. Actually, most of their roster has ended up changing. It is the top 2 members, the top and jungle, which have stayed the same, but this is the best that they've looked probably since, I would say, summer 2021. That was back when they had Aria, of course. They ended up getting into a top 3 berth, sadly kind of collapsing very towards that end of the split. But this is a team which has occasionally reached high levels in the LJL. It's sometimes been few and far between, but it's not necessarily as alien to this roster as it would be to AXIZ.
No, of course, you know, the roster that comes to mind is the one with the likes of Gango and Aria on it, which did such good work. And then Swamp is going to come down for the ganking bot side and look to get first blood. Swamp continuing to be a very proactive jungler in the LJL. It is 2 kills over. Swamp picks up the second, and Sanctuary and Swamp rolling. Music to AXIZ fans' ears.
And this is the earliest timer that you could be doing this on Hecarim, which is partly why I was like, oh, let's have story time. Let's see what happens, because honestly, at this point, you're thinking, look, you know that the level 4 has been hit by your junglers at this point. That's when Hecarim is dangerous. When you have the Ghost, when you get to run into these lanes, you are in a lot of trouble. Dicey pulls the trigger at the correct point. It's not like you have to vow. Can't save your AD carry at that point. And rudely interrupted story time does net AXIZ some advantages.
And of course, that is a great start for AXIZ, exactly what they want. And honestly, I think playing away from Tolto at this point towards a more consistent win condition like Sangju makes a lot of sense here. And if you can get an isolated lineup here, if you could have played this out even just basically, Kennen should do just fine into Sion.
And speaking of Sangshu, the more stable win condition in that bot side, especially due to champions, blah, blah, blah. I mean, what is it with AXIZ and picking up great AD carries in these last 2 years? They used to have Honey, they have Sangshu now, seriously premier AD carries. I think Sangshu has been the bright spark for me from this AXIZ roster. Now they are up against Hybrid. Hybrid is now a kill down in a matchup where you do not want to fall behind the Jinx. You want to arm wrestle them in the early game and then start getting a lot of kill pressure around that level 6. But now Sangshu has that advantage. He's back for the cult. It's actually a very LPL thing to do.
Big time. That's normally the level 2 cheater back, actually.
It was, yeah. Sheen was filling me in on this tech. Says that a lot of teams in the LPL just end up doing this to kind of get an artificial advantage. You double dip when Aphelios has the point in strength at level 6 to like level 9 before you start outranging him. But once you do back for that call, you're like, sweet, we get to come back. Swamp's back again. Let's see if we can dig an even bigger hole.
Cue up the Shrek references. This is my Swamp gank, because he'll come down here, and there is no donkey around to make things a bit awkward, but maybe Cassid can be a spoiler right now. Looking to turn us around. Swamp slowed down. Gravitum comes through as an auto. The Vernum Duskwave doing a bit of work as well, but it will be flashes out of Nemo. Nothing else to write home about right now aside from a heal from Sang.
But the reason that gank doesn't come through it like with as much power is that you don't have the Ghost, and there was an exhaust on the table too. So Nemo managing to disengage, couldn't do that on the first attempt, but more than happy to survive that.
Yeah, of course the summoner's still down, and now with level 6 available for Swamp, there is an onslaught of shadows available, which means the next attempt could be significantly more deadly. Though I personally feel you might want to hold on to that, because you can see in the top left corner of your screens, that's a Herald timer, and it's just ticked below a minute.
Good heavens, look at the time. So look at
it's a smallish
the
clock.
Big clock. So the thing about the amount of fights we've had bot lane, it means you don't get clean rotations up towards the Herald. You can see that actually Hybrid and Nemo are looking to go back towards their bot lane. They don't really want to be rotating that early, whereas Dicey has got a little bit walkabout on the map.
He has, and of course, at this point, Sanctu's got a little bit of AD to his name. He's got the Berserker's Greaves, he's got some mana, so you can just rocket spam and try and keep Aphelios away from the tower, or at least not make sure he's not there for too long. As Nap just being a little obnoxious there.
Yes, this is a lane that exists.
It is a lane that exists, and until I see these champions and team fights, I don't care too much. I think that's fair to say. But probably the moment I've said that, there's going to be some madness in top lane. It happens literally every time. As Kaito is going to take a Mistral Bolt to the face, be a little unhappy about that, and then walk back to clear up some minions.
So, speaking of that mid lane, though, you can see a small advantage coming through for Kaito. Actually, fairly large for what you expect from this lane, but it's mirrored by the advantage, which is kind of expected in that top side. So, in terms of laning phase, kind of giving as good as it gets on both sides, but we do have that level 6 coming through from the Hecarim. Was available actually a little while ago, but the Swamp actually decided to power farm back up to another level and then go towards the Herald.
Yeah, and I think when you saw the Ultimate Shadows was available but a minute before the Herald fight, you think, yeah, early game, you're not going to have that on cooldown in time for something like that. So I absolutely understand the decision making to not burn the ultimates for a pick and nothing more. And that has sometimes been a criticism, I think, of teams sort of in the middle of the packs in various leagues around the world, where you'll use your abilities to get picks, but not anything else for it.
Yeah,
And
you
it's
don't
not even
translate it, right?
You're not even fighting it like necessarily item discrepancies. It's just, I can get a pick here is kind of the end of that call, which is, at the high end, not necessarily what you're looking for.
No, but AXIZ kind of taking it towards the positive. They have control of this game so far. They have the Jinx side of the matchups. They're happy going fairly late into this game. However, you can see that the first Merc Treads hasn't built up onto the side of CGA. The question is, of course, when are AXIZ going to find their first time to actually pull the trigger? Because you're not actually getting split push pressure on a Kennen over the Sion right now. Sion is just tanking things up. Honestly, I wouldn't even mind if this is a hull breaker Sion just to sit in a side lane for most of the game. I think that's a very valuable play pattern at this point, given how you want to remove AXIZ's ability to kind of push in and take take multiple angles of attack.
Yes.
I was like, words, that's a hard thing to do sometimes. But yes, I think that if we see a hull breaker come through from Nap, I'm pretty happy with that too, you know?
Yeah, I could see it. I think there's definitely one of it. It's not quite lethality sign out of the mouse and the rest of it, but that's about probably not a bad thing, actually, as I got a little distracted, changed tracks in mid-thought there. Let's check in on the gold a little bit here as well, as we're kind of edging towards when heralds and plates and stuff will be falling over the next couple minutes. So it is worth checking in before those crash to see what the state is. It's about 1,000 or so to AXIZ right now, which is pretty much those 2 early kills. You've talked about the discrepancies in solo lanes kind of being somewhat traded back and forth, and it's left us with a slight gold lead to AXIZ, but of course the dragon going over to CGA makes that perhaps a relatively.
But there is the herald soul inventory, so look for that to go down with the dragon contest potentially being set up. And CJ walking to river and swamp also in the area. We can potentially see a counterweight coming down to trade plates around the place. So swamp looking towards his bot lane, looking towards that priority. He doesn't have the same in the mid lane, which means that Kaito will have first swing at AXIZ should mid laners come into the equation.
Indeed, to see whether he can make something of it, of course, is the other thing. There's Megabint still got some pots in inventory, so should be fine to do that. Is still playing with fire a little bit here. Not passive quite stacked up in Megaman, so you can dash forwards on as the LeBlanc. It often is a game of chicken there, trying to play that out as Swamp has decided to come down towards his spot side with the Dragon alive with the Herald in inventory and passing on vision. And Nap roaming down, of course, with the unstoppable onslaught can be here very quickly.
Oh no, it's the horrible game with the onslaught of shadows, unstoppable onslaught.
Felios onslaught as well with the separate. So there are 3 abilities with onslaught in the name. It is my nightmare.
Do we have anyone that's unstoppable, by the way? No, we don't. We have unless you're in those ultimates. That's really sad. It would be great if we had just a random Ragnarok in there from Cassin's
attempted steal.
Famous Olaf. It is going to be a dragon traded for plates, small gold onto Sangchu, but on a mountain rift, when you're trying to fight front to back, when you're trying to survive out the first burst combo, if this does get up to a mountain soul, that seriously impacts AXIZ's win condition.
Credit to Nap here as well for managing to keep Toll2 away from the tower, yet to get even a single plate there, despite the shove. Of course, decimating smash means you can clear out waves really quite quickly.
No. It's decimating smash. You can only do it a 10th at a time. Because that's what decimation means.
Yeah,
it's killing.
So you only kill like 1 in 10.
That's it. You actually see.
What happens CS a minute.
You charge Q and you go and just randomly across the map. Every 1 in 10 minutes just randomly dies.
So I think what it actually means is you're asking for 10 CS a minute as an average. It's just a 1 CS a minute.
So just cast sound Q like a couple of times a minute. At that point you're pretty fine. You're pretty safe.
Support Scion. That's what it is. But you're just clearing up cannon minions every now and then.
Not like this hashtag. But yeah, no, decimation was a Roman
Legion.
It was shut up, you. No, decimation was an old Roman legionary punishment. If you ran from battle, they would take out every 1 in 10th soldier. Yeah. Do with that information what you will. History lesson from a completely different region to the LJL.
Yeah, well, what does our profession history teach us?
Apparently. That's the
one. Yep. History of esports. We took Professor Oak's class from last time, right? Which was alongside sequel impressions. Apparently, is what was required from the likes of J-Real Middlecott.
Wait, do you reckon we could make an LJLOU Nuzlocke run where we could have Professor Oak, but then because everything's random minion caster spawning, it's randomly seeded.
My days, it's beginning. All right,
I'm gonna name my rival Middlecott something.
Considering I helped run this broadcast, I could literally set up a meeting to organize this.
Wait, maybe we could.
I could force this.
Maybe we could be the starter Pokemon. You can choose between all of that. Look, Namo, I choose you.
I'm gonna try and think about using a 1-hit KO move, the likes of Onslaught of Shadows, but Swamp's been exhausted. Moonlight Vigil goes wide, but again, Moonlight Vigil hybrid. That was sick.
Oh my gosh, that is such a big turnaround. And once again, AXIZ very telegraphed about the way they're playing this game. It feels like, for me, AXIZ, when they come onto the Rift, they want to play for 1 lane, and if the enemy team doesn't let them do that, things get difficult. They found ways now. They found some ways earlier in the split to kind of just hammer through an early advantage. Not the case in this bot lane. Swamp comes down, but this has become such about the 3v3 rather than the 2v2. So you see it's not necessarily the best one-on-one weapons from Hybrid, but gets the root to disengage Hecarim, stops him really landing anything before it even gets, has to very quickly... Oh, that is disgusting. That is actually...
Oh, he's so good.
That is very high value. And let me tell you why that looks so cool. You got the 20% crit chance, right?
No!
You got the 20% crit
No,
chance.
that's what it was!
Because a lot of the time, Aphelios looks really underwhelming if he doesn't crit on the ult. Because when you hit someone with the ult with the Aphelios, you actually do a follow-up auto attack. But that obviously relies on the amount of items you got. Gets it with the first amount of crit that he buys in this game. And
Lethality, crit, 20% chance.
All of it hurts
all comes
quite
through.
a lot.
Oh, that is so frustrating. Swamp's not quite at Onslaught of Shadows, so they might just try holding off on this second Herald to come back to life. But Cassin stepping up, keeping this leash. Swamp is still around, but with no ghost, no ultimate, as we just said. Not a lot of room to do it. Cypher doing that!
Oh, come on.
Zac chooses that one. Oh, beautiful.
Someone's not... Oh, my God. Are they actually going to let him have it as well? Oh, they're
Gonna
actually going to let him have it.
Oh, no. That's an aura of dread for CG as their hearts just sink after that.
Oh, God. Hang on. Wait. Just like...
Mission accomplished.
Battle next times, lads. We'll get him next time.
Oh, that is just so
Where'd that
horrifying
go?
to see. I mean, and the thing is, that's really dangerous now for CGA because you were starting to get to a point where you were happy with getting the gold onto your AD carry, kind of holding down Sanchu, who had gotten a lot of resources earlier on. You've now given both Heralds over. If this leads to a mid lane outer turret falling because your lane allocations aren't really set up for that, because you weren't really set up for a quick Herald reset, this could be really dangerous now. You could start losing control of areas of the map that you weren't planning on doing so, and that will give AXIZ another opportunity to get ahead.
Yeah, and you can see Hybrid right now doing very well for himself. It's like about just under 1,000 gold ahead of Sanctuary. Seraphine, because I saw an S, and that would have been awful. It's not actually.
Justice for the Bracken. Sorry, what?
Like, they removed that law because it was super weird. It's just like, I'm not going to get into that rant right now. My issues with Riot's law writing is a little suspect. Anyway, moving
legendary.
On. Yeah, like I feel like this is, but I'm due like at least one semi rant about that every 3 months or so.
Is it in
Anyway,
contract actually?
yeah, pretty much. It is Hybrid
okay.
just about gets out of that, but we are still going to get the Herald summon in mid lane. Over the wall goes Kaito, gets a bit of a chunk.
Oh,
Moonlight
come
Vigil! He can't keep getting away with it. That is just disgusting. Swamp being jumped up will be able to get out without burning the Onslaught of Shadows. But even using the Herald, they still lose priority because Hybrid burns them all alive.
Now, I have to say, I am not a believer in the Mega Infernum bomb anymore. I think that was
No, not two in a row. Okay, you're fine.
Got our hopes up there, observers. But I'm not a believer in Infernum ultimates. I think that often early into the game, they actually don't do that much, but Hybrid gets 2 for 2 on the crits by my eye. That is game-changing RNG, actually, at this point. It stops the dragon fight. It stops that bot fight in the first place. And CGA very much praising their AD carry for getting himself into the position to achieve that. They're very much also thanking the Lucky Stars too.
I know we mentioned Ashin earlier, and obviously like
Yes.
the old school, the old school, the new school, going back for those, the level 2 cheater recalls for all of the cult, the rest of it. But apparently, we're also channeling one of the better teams out there because that was some serious RNG going Hybrid's way. Yeah, that was the tangent. I'm sorry, Ashin.
Well,
you were
all
out there. They were
all
expecting
that
some
for an
actual
RNG
LPRs.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it
All
wasn't.
right.
That's exactly
All
what it
right.
was.
Okay, so bring it back into a little bit of rare normalcy.
I refuse to believe it's gonna last more than a minute.
No, but we have to do it to make the non-normalcy seem a little bit more impactful.
Okay, I
Because
see.
the thing is that, like,
I'm with you.
If you
Contrast.
So if you ate like I don't know your favorite food,
That
for
was
forever
less
and a
than a
day,
sentence of normalcy.
Damn, you're right. Because if you eat your favorite food for forever, it becomes actually not special after a while. You gotta show some restraint. Don't go into the hedonistic glee of having like udon for every meal of the day. That's what I've learned.
I wasn't expecting the Aelan Darnus wisdom reference here. If you know that and where I'm getting that from, because I know where he got that info
Yeah,
from.
shout out
If you
to
don't-
Wandering In. Let's
Exactly.
go.
If you've not read that, I suggest it's a great ongoing series that is very long. But right now,
Not wandering far from the mid lane are these AD carries. And one thing which I do bring up every time it's built is because I think it's a very interesting conversation, is that we are going to see the rapid fire counter second onto Sanctuary. Really helps you push out waves. It helps you get priority onto that area of the map, even when you are stood alone. And now the map is starting to come into a new balance.
Absolutely is. And I also want to point out some very 0-0-0 heavy scorelines, namely that of both Toltu and Nap. And the moment I say it, an attempt on to the cannon under his tier 2, but there has been no teleports. There has been no team fights where they managed to get this cannon involved right now. And that makes me a little bit worried. Need to see something happening in the next few months because they're already down Soul Point. And yes, there's been some serious RNG to give them a little bit of help with some of those crits, as we stated. But all the same, you've not been able to wield your combo correctly yet in this game.
And, you know, I think that Nav has been okay in his individual Toltu has been fine as individual players, as we see Tom not having to both go with that. But when Toltu has had to link up with his team, that's been where the difficulty has started to come in. CGA, for all their faults, is historically a team that hasn't laned that well. The early game can be a bit shaky. Sometimes they can be a bit directionless until they finally see 5 people on their screen, like, right, this is how we team fight. They've come through this game. They've actually addressed a lot of those worries. Their laning phase is more than fine this game. Heck, look at their lanes right now. They've got leads in every single one besides, you know, well, I mean, top is even. I count that as a lead against a cannon. And yeah, CGA very much being stable right now.
That's another good Gale Force from Hybrid, who's been on point with those all games so far. Avoids an attempt to engage there and gets out with, honestly, a summoner advantage. Does get the flash out of Dicey. Oh, yes, it has the Hex Flash, so not feeling as bad about losing that on the Nautilus, but it's also going to cost them pressure in mid lane. It costs them a mid lane tier 1, and AXIZ yet to get a single turret even in this game.
Now, we talked quite early into the game about win conditions and how things would kind of change in regards to how far ahead AXIZ dive combo would get. We're saying, okay, well, at what point does a multi-man combo just delete CGA? Well, we've not really seen that so far, and we've not seen any threat onto the Aphelios. I think these are two very concerning things now for AXIZ. The last time I cast him was against V3. That was a much lower tier opposition, and they were fairly confident in that game at playing through their win conditions, but they're struggling to find anything similar here. And Sangchu
gets it, but now
he
needs
gets
to get
it for a
teleport. Let's see what turns around. Actually, this might just work. They've got the minion to work with. Cassin's bare the ultimate, but in goes the Shadow Surge. Hybrid taken so low here. Snap into the backside as well. Cassin finally dies to Swamp, and Sangchu's trying to stay alive. Flashes out of the decimating smash, and Nap is now in a difficult position as well.
Oh, no,
Angel! Inferno for the 3rd time in a row strikes home. 3 strikes, you're out, Sangchu.
Lightning strikes twice. The Infernum strikes 3 times, and Hybrid again making me a believer in the mid game of this champion. Remember, CGA chose this side of the matchup. They chose it after that first pick, Hecarim. They said, no, we don't want the Jinx. We believe in Hybrid's Aphelios, and they are being paid off for that decision so strongly. This fight starts with Sangchu very much diving deep, well, not diving, but staying over long for that mid lane outer turret. We know it's an important objective. They saw the time before it. But having your AD carry on such low HP stops you from running forward into a point where you can really threaten a lot of this team fight. It's actually lucky to survive the very start of this, because Nap, of course, comes in through the back end of that fight, finds a way to engage with that Scion, but this is the story of the fight. It's another ultimate. It's a 4-man Moonlight Vigil.
Dragon about to be started, and this will be sold for CGA. Can AXIZ find the fight? Can they find a flip? Something to prevent this going over.
It's a soul point already, 23 minutes.
HP bars are pretty low, and Megamin off vision here has got Shadow Surge, could look for a back end engage. Also the Shadow's in, will secure the Dragon. Shadow Surge comes out as well, and they get Hybrid. He's done, but that will be Swamp being traded out now as well as Megamin doing his best to finish up some kills. Double kill for Sancho, making a triple. That's a cannon. Maelstrom that slices them all. Inclement weather brings them all down, and lightning will strike 4 times, but this time it's for AXIZ.
Let's go back to that question. At what point are CGA safe from the AoE combos of AXIZ? Turns out not just yet. They go boldly towards that dragon, they go towards the objective, and are punished so heavily for stacking into this combo for the first time this game. AXIZ have had to wait patiently. They've had to take a couple of L's in the mid-game skirmishes, but Megaman finds an angle, gets in for the huge CC on the backline, and as much as you can devour up your AD carry, it's on cooldown at this point. See it ticking down in that corner, and Sangchu is completely untouched in the back end. That mops up the fight.
And then you can just see Toltu's here, manages to get both clones of LeBlanc. There will be no tricky business for that one. And the lightning catches that, and Pikachu chooses you. Been over there, Pokemon reference already in this game, and it's looking a little bit more like Dark Souls right now. It's a bloodbath on the Rift.
We're gonna go on like the Nuzlocke LJL charge. Doesn't this mean that at this point we need to like change out all the players every time they die? You just switch out hot seat.
That would probably be quite a fun, like
all-star
event.
That would be. You know what? That'd be fantastic. The problem is if then you just get randomly solo killed, just like, oh, and I get to play the rest of the game.
Yes, exactly. But then you just got to deal with it.
I would do that. I would totally do that. You know, next time there's the ability to do like a PC game or a PC gaming event or at a cafe or an LAN event, we're trying that. Put that on the list.
That would be quite good fun. All right, keep that in mind. But AXIZ with the big play when they needed it most, get themselves a Baron as well. Managed to get those turrets. They'd failed to get earlier. Remember, they used a lot of resources to get the mid lane out of turret, and a 1-for-1 that was all the madness that started off a lot of this. Exactly that. But now they've got a Jinx with a rapid fire and an Infinity Edge as well as that Kraken Slayer who can start shoving in. You've got Tol2 backed up by these Baron empowered minions shoving in the top side, and I think the 4-1 is the right choice here considering potential damage onto AXIZ that CGA could bring to bear should they wish to go in.
And as much as the Hullbreaker helps in the individual matchup between the Sion and the Cannon, it doesn't have a Baron buff. Of course, the boarding party passive of the Hullbreaker item means that your Cannon minions do get that much more tanky, but it's not enough to wave clear out just yet. CGA is stuck under both of their pushed lane turrets. And this is, again, the economy of the first Baron that you tend to get in the games. Actually, something which Rude talks a lot. I credit it to him. The economy Baron allows you to get a game-breaking advantage, but rarely allows you to finish the game at that point.
And you can see it in the gold scores. It was about 3,000 gold when we came to live. It's extended more to about 4 at this point. And you can see the Baron power play in the top right corner. It is that 4K mark from just behind now to significantly
pretty good economy Baron.
Exactly. You take that economy Baron. Not quite CSGO, of course, but I think the point still stands.
No, I don't think CJ have the option of ecoing. Maybe that's what it is when you don't contest for an objective. Maybe that's
basically it.
Honestly,
I think that's the equivalent.
That's probably it.
There you go.
Huh. I hadn't thought of that parallel before. You know what? That's quite interesting.
There you go. We can ruminate on that as we go.
Well, it does seem like Hybrid and Sanctuary have been playing tactical shooters from the way that this game's been going so far.
Going to get a recall off in the bush below the blue buff as well there as well. So no chance of catching out Cassin. But it will lead to a loss of control of the blue side jungle. At least Kaito got blue buff, which should help keep his mana available and topped up prior to this next dragon that's coming up in under a minute.
And how heartbreaking would it be for CJ to lose this game against the 3-9 AXIZ? Kaito
gonna get devastatingly charged, but actually less damage than I was anticipating as I saw a Hecarim running into your lane.
There's no Triforce or something.
I just looked at the items. That's a yeah.
But either way, the fact that Kaito has to put himself into those positions to try and push up, try and test is dangerous. And again, this is against AXIZ. The 3-9. This is not a team that we expected high levels of competition coming out of into this part of the split after that Smite top meta had been removed forcibly from the pro scene. CGA still finding themselves in a very difficult situation. They're going to have to dig deep. They're going to have to find some of that team fighting magic that we know that Nap and Cassin had much of last year. But they kind of have to do this right down the gullet of AXIZ. They're going to have to walk into enemy warded territory and potentially open themselves up for flanks.
Can CGA come back in this game? They're in a difficult position right now. Megamin is on one flank, Tol2 on the other. It's off vision right now, but starting up. The autos will reveal himself as Dicey goes in.
No!
Cassin gets what he came for. But what about the fight afterwards? He will surely fall. But what about the rest of the team? Also, the shadows over the wall will maybe allow Kaido to go down. He's going to hop forward, throw down a Sigil of Malice. Moonlight Vigil finally goes wide for once in this game. Shadow Surge his hit, but it's only really on to Nap, not the best target. Sangchu gets a hold of Nemo. He will still fall down potentially afterwards, but still running around. Nap not quite dead, does now fall. Megamin, Swamp, and Sangchu are the 3 remaining members of AXIZ, but it's only Hybrid that survives the onslaught.
Oh, miracle steal from Cassin, though. They get the objective, but they lose the fight. So how the hell did this end up happening in? It's just the flash forward, it's the smite at the same time. Cassin, serious hero play for the side of Crest Gaming Act. However, their front line is taken down very, very easily after that point. Sangchu is able to walk inside the Crescent Guard and not really pay much heed. to that Jin Zhao inside of it with no basic cooldowns remaining. And then you have the resets coming through. You get the Excited. And Sangchu has the damage. It's so huge items. Doesn't even have the Gale Force, the Kraken Slayer, remember. If you get to stand and fire as this Jinx, there's almost no fight in which you win, even with Hybrid pulling off some big plays of his own.
And now at 8-1-3 with 4 items. Yes, you got the Mana Assault, and that's great for stopping the initial burst, but if it ends up in an extended fight, that Jinx will still tear through you. Of course, you have got the likes of a Tarmken. You have got a 2-item. Randu in second, by the way, on the Jin Zhao, who will be making more use out of those Mountain Soul stats than he might have done otherwise. And then, of course, there is a Scion, who is a notorious tank.
Notorious tank, but how tanky can anyone be against an 8-kill Jinx? Almost full items, just waiting for that stopwatch to be upgraded or to be sold for another defensive option. Woo! And that is a 10k team fight. Sangchu, as much as we praise Hybrid a lot in this split, Sangchu is also on the list of newcomers to the league, which we had our eyes on and were firmly glued to our screen. Sangchu, again, holding up the banner for AXIZ and stellar AD carries from this season and the last.
Like in any other team fight, Hybrid's 4K team fight would have been a really great set. Exactly, would have been a fantastic team fight. It's just Sangchu. I mean, in fairness, a lot of that is him killing off both Cassid, Nap, and Nemo, who are all massive
with the Mountain
health
Soul
tanks.
on top of them.
Yeah, exactly. So that's a lot of health to choke through. So there's a little bit of inflation going on. But even so, that is not what you wanted to see.
Oh, look, it's the emotional experience of being a CGA fan. Yet again. Turns out every season it happens the same way.
The LJL coaster is more than just a podcast thumbnail, guys. This right here, this gold graph, is the thumbnail. This is why.
Thank you, Blitzcrank for your hard work. See you again in another twist of fate, potentially.
Space Cow.
See you around Space Cowboy.
I was going to try and find a way of saying like Hook Champion without it being slightly inappropriate sounding, so we'll move away from that.
Yeah, you can't really say see you around, Space Hooker.
Exactly, it's just like, exactly, that was my problem, and you wouldn't said it anyway. I spent so long avoiding it.
We're going to make our own broadcasts with Blackjack and Space Hookers. Okay, forget the gold graphs and the Blitzcrank.
We're in so much trouble.
Mid-priority being fought over yet again. Gold leads inside of AXIZ. Still, they are continually pushing up the ante. They're building up their items, but they're against the neutral objective lead of CGA Hybrid, taking down an entire structure of that mid lane in a turret. And they claim the territory in AXIZ side of the jungle, and AXIZ not in position to defend this push.
That's what they paid for, I suppose, by going for the vision control. They don't lose the inhibitor tower. They do lose that tier 2, which is a small win for CGA, but a necessary one right now because they are significant amounts of gold behind right now. 5,000 at this point in the game, still a big deal. And of course, a lot of that is on the Jinx. That is your problem. It's not like it's spread evenly among the players. I know that's on the 8 kills on Jinx.
But if there's any one champion in the entire game right now that you want kills onto, it's Jinx. Jinx is definitely that.
I'll completely agree.
And with both their summoners available, with the stopwatch to CGA are
Mega Man.
They're running out of options, and this tanky front line is doing enough for now.
Teleport option behind here, CG as well, just to the bottom left, underneath the Scion picture board. I'm trying to say the stat page, stat block. There we go. That's probably a better way of phrasing it. There you go, just on vision. Now I wonder whether there might have been an option for a TP in from someone like Nap instead. It will just be some posturing that leads to very little at this point. Control ward still remains though for CGA.
It does. And speaking of that posturing, the person that really has options for CGA at least is the LeBlanc. And Kaito is a player that came in late into CGA last season, came in to replace Nation, who was role swapping around because there was illness in the team, and he did okay. He had some okay Zoe performances, went towards the LeBlanc as well, but has had some LJL experience, went into playoffs and was sadly dealt a 0-3 loss in that first series that he was put into. but he's really struggling.
Oh, Dicey misses. That could be problematic, but Nemo still going to be in a problematic position because there's an onslaught of shadow still available. Swamp has to go on such a massive shield after the
There's Megaman!
But there's Megaman to the backside. Shadow Judge there alongside the Maelstrom! Who needs a hull breaker when you can capsize ships like that? Into the high seas and swamped out, washed out by Maelstrom and horses.
It's a wave of assaults. It's a wave of engages. Swamp blows the Devour. Solo laners pick up the pieces of the team fight. It's an Elder fight. It's gone late. Caston is alive. He's done one Miracle Steal and is off a vision.
It could happen again.
Just spotted again.
Pull it out. Don't let it happen. They're now trying to roam around. But he's still going to now finally be on vision. They know where he is. He needs to back away. He can't go for the steal anymore. No flash. No ultimate. No hope. AXIZ with the engage options. Make it work. Megaman finds hybrid.
Alongside Toll 2 as well. And I have to say, praising both of those solo laners because they're coordinating. They're finding the right targets together. And again, seriously wanting you to keep your eyes on how the engage of AXIZ is spread out. It's not all layered on top of a Devour. And yes, you do have Nap buying a lot of time, but Toll 2 flashes right in. Megaman's done the same. But it's only because the entire team, the jungle support, blew the defensive options so the solo laners could find that angle. AXIZ, they find themselves a team fight against a team that has so famously done that before.
And we know what these players can do from early weeks. Sangchu having another one of those games. Swamp has been leading the charge, and credit to the solo laners as well, turning up when necessary in these massive objective fights. Hats off to Megaman, hats off to Toll 2. They found yet another way onto hybrid.
But they need to find a way onto the Nexus at some point, because as much as we've seen all of these teamfights go in AXIZ's favor, when you have so much damage onto an Aphelios too, when you have the ability to just instantly delete people if you make a single mistake, if you overstep into an Inferno at this point, you think it's bad at one item, see what happens when you crit with these items. And as much as CJ have been on the back end of the bad team fights, one mistake could be the story of this game from this point.
I've got to call it out as well. I didn't really get chance before that last one, as it was a bloodthirster fourth hybrid. There is no Lord Dominic's regards, not a lot of armor pen here, and I understand you're trying to stay alive against all of the people trying to tear your face off, and honestly, after that last fight, the last couple of fights, you can't blame him, but it does prove a bit problematic when things like the Zhonya's, things like that Hecarim who built full tank, things like the Nautilus now starting to get towards a few more items, it makes his life even more difficult, and I wonder whether at some point that collector needs to be switched out.
Okay, well, looking to collect their dues, another engage.
Onto the shadows to get a lot, but it does force CGA away from their next inhibitor tower. Not quite that far in yet, but the inhibitor falls first of the game. They'll rotate over to their second wave. Kindly set up for them earlier, Blue Peter style. They'll get another inhibitor down the line as well.
So wave not available in the top side. And with the Baron buff and the Elder falling off just now, AXIZ is going to move away from the base of CGA. Look to collect that last wave, use the last of their Baron buff, even without the Mega Combat buff, to see if they can put CGA in the worst possible scenario.
About a minute left on the Baron buff, so they'll have a wave, I think 2 waves, probably just about with this Baron. And of course, at that point, Super Minions will be crashing in as well in about 30 seconds or so. So this is probably a little bit of time to at least keep CGA bottled up here and prevent them from even having a chance of recuperating, rebalancing after the hammer blow that AXIZ have landed over the last couple of minutes.
So, kites up. Not even on 3 hours.
Oh, no. I appreciate it, but that is a dead LeBlanc. There's no Banshee's Veil. There's no way of staying alive if you get caught by an Everfrost like that. It is the cold embrace of death that he comes into. And now with the additional person down, yes, you've got a Mountain Soul, but what is a mountain beneath the crushing weight of competence here from AXIZ in this late game?
And seriously, they sniffed out the flank. Kaito gets in there for like half a second, immediately shut down.
I thought there was a teleport behind. No, it's just a teleport for the minions to keep it alive, and that'll allow them to get the last next inhibitor turret. I've said that a couple times now, but the point still stands. It's the Nexus that's now under siege instead. Nap is going to try and do his best, but his hybrid is flashing away, staying alive as the Onslaught of Shadows was there. Slicing Maelstrom coming through as well. One final Nexus turret remaining. Still trying to stay alive, but it's already a triple for Sangchu. He's looking for even more. This might even be a pentacle if he can get away. They don't give him that. They'll just clear up the game. And